I'm here with Kevin Corinth. He is a homelessness researcher and scholar for the American Enterprise Institute. And we're going to talk a little bit about a subject that everyone is familiar with. That's the panhandlers that we see maybe in front of the convenience store or on the sidewalk as we're on our way to work. How do we treat these men and women? There was an article in the Week recently that talked about this very same issue, and there was a mention that panhandlers, maybe sometimes they're scam artists, but sometimes they're also the face of Jesus. And you responded by saying that, yes, they may be a scam artist, but all the time they are the face of Jesus. Talk about that distinction.
Yeah, so the radical thing about Christianity is that all the walls are down. So even the woman who's separated from her husband, who's fleeing domestic violence, all the way to the crack addict looking for his next hit, all of those people, we're called to love them. And so when we approach somebody on the street, that's the approach and that's the heart that we need to have when we interact with them. And so really, when we think about whether to give to a panhandler, I think there's three things we need to do. First is recognize that this person is a child of God and that we're called to love them, regardless of their circumstances, regardless of the choices that they make. And then second, out of a place of deep empathy and deep humility, try to understand that there's many factors that are going on in this person's life, which we may not be able to fully understand. And then third, we have to act. So we can act in one of three reasonable ways, I think. And one of those is not to ignore and avoid. But when we act, I think we can either give money. Second, we could give of our time and things. And third, we can politely decline and work to what I would say maximize love in the rest of our lives.
Wonderful. One of the options in the act, you said we can give money, and that's a lot of times what the panhandlers are asking for.
Yeah.
But is that the best way to acknowledge a person's humanity?
So I certainly think it's one way to acknowledge a person's humanity. When we give money, we're sacrificially giving of ourselves, and that does connote love. But the thing is that money may not be the most effective way to help that person. I think the better way is to potentially decline the request and potentially give food or share a meal or a cup of coffee with the person and get to know them person to person. And if you don't have time for that, I think the better solution is to give the services which may be more effective in providing the things that they really need. They certainly have immediate needs, which are food and shelter, and there's services that provide those. We need to get people to those services, and we need to improve those services because they're not always the best way out. So that's what we need to do.
You know, speaking a little bit about the services, there has been a lot of thought and reflection about giving to homeless nonprofits and maybe ministries about that, given what Miley Cyrus did with her VMA acceptance speech. But certainly, even after you give to an organization like that, you still see that the number of homelessness is about the same, if not more. So, I mean, what are some deeper questions or some deeper thoughts that we need to have about the nonprofits and the ministries that are taking care of our homeless?
Yeah, so there's a lot of great work being done across the country in different ways. The problem is we don't really know what works. Right now we've embraced a strategy which on one hand makes it illegal for many people to panhandle or sleep in park benches. And on the other hand, we're engaging people in shelter and other housing options, which is great. We need to address housing, but we also need to address some of the other needs that these people have. I mean, large portions suffer from mental illness and substance abuse. Many are isolated from family and community, and we really need to do a better job of also addressing those issues because that's what's going to not only reduce the number of homeless people, but also address the fundamental needs of some of the worst off people in our society.
And lastly, I know that you are working to affect policy here. I mean, are there any things that we maybe should pay attention to in terms of like policy that can actually impact homelessness?
Yeah, so again, I think the policies which simply are reducing the numbers of homeless that's not the objective. The objective is to let humans flourish through reconnections with community and family and work. And so we need to explore those interventions which really deal with those aspects. And so I think that's really where the heart of the matter is, provide housing, but also emphasize some of these other fundamental needs, which if they're not addressed, we're not going to solve homelessness.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Kevin. Your insights are much appreciated. And you are watching CP Insider.